This episode is brought to you by ADP. ADP uses data-driven insights to design HR solutions to help businesses think beyond today and find more success tomorrow. ADP, always designing for HR, talent, time, payroll, people.
You're now listening to The Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where three relatively grown men binge the iconic HBO series Sex and the City. So dust off those DVDs and grab yourself a white wine or even a Cosmopolitan and settle in. Take it away, boys.
Welcome to the Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where three guys are watching romantic comedies for the first time ever, mostly. I'm Cory Cavin.
I'm Kevin Doyle.
My name is Jon Sieber.
Listen,
Part 3 of my big, fat Greek wedding.
I hope you guys are ready for some fucking climaxes and some denouements. Because that's what's coming at you on this episode.
Denouement.
Dude, denouement.
We should have named this podcast the Denouement.
Ah, the denouement.
We really
the
screwed that
denouement
up.
daddies.
Denouement daddies.
I don't even know what denouement is.
Denouement is
Aristotle. Is it Aristotle? Or it's just it's
structure, story structure.
Yeah, got it.
So it's kind of the, after the climax.
Okay.
After the climax is the denouement. Right?
What is it? All I know is
it's
when
the falling action, right?
Can you give me some examples in some movies?
Sure.
My big fat denouement. It's one of them.
So denouement definition is the final part of a movie, play, or narrative in which the strands of the plot are drawn together and matters are explained or resolved.
Okay. So it's like I'm going through Dan Harmon's story circle right now. And
Okay.
It's Return. It's at the end where
It's the return home.
It's the return
and you've
home.
changed.
You've changed.
Yeah, it's when Frodo gets back.
He
He's
goes
like,
back
what
to the Shire.
What the fuck happened to the Shire?
And they're like, well, you're still short.
But
Well,
that wouldn't be the denouement. The denouement would be when Frodo leaves the Shire.
No. That's the I don't know what it's called. I was gonna say the initial action, the inciting incident.
When he goes to the White Havens because he can't live in the Shire any longer.
Oh, you mean leaves
Yeah,
at
you're
the
right.
end? And I thought you meant left at the beginning.
You're right.
I was like,
Thank
you're
you.
way off.
That movie actually in book play with it a lot because the book is way different too.
Yeah.
But it'll be like, if there's a fight in this, there's just like blah 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 blah, and then they kiss and fall in the water and kiss and fall in love, and then it's the end. It'll be
the denouement will be when his mom says Opa for the first time.
That'll be the climax.
That'll be the climax.
Yeah, it'll be that scene at the end that's like when they're having coffee and just be like, well, so this is our life now. And she's like, and it's a great life.
I like to think of all
And
things
it's
in
a
movies
Greek
from the
life.
lens of Hitch. Is this the scene when they're dancing at the wedding in Hitch?
And there's a big dance party that leads to credits.
Yeah.
I've never seen Hitch.
Leave.
I thought I watched it with you.
No.
I'd never seen
We
it.
were
And
in
then
the Hamptons
How are you
and I wasn't
doing?
paying
How are you
attention.
doing this podcast and never seen? I love Hitch.
That's why I'm doing the podcast. So I
thought
can
we were
watch
gonna-
Hitch.
I thought we were going to end this the Hitch hymns.
Yeah.
No.
Now I know there's a wedding in Hitch. Fuck.
No, there's not.
Okay.
No, there's not.
There's not.
No.
But yeah, the
Will
denouement.
Smith dies alone.
Hitch is a heist movie.
It is.
There was this article that I saw that somebody posted that was talking about how
Brag.
like the oppressive nature of it was literally like
Oh,
introduction, rising action, climax, and they said that was like oppressive.
Oppressive 3-act structure.
Yeah, and I was just like, well, then don't use it and see how your fucking play goes or
mean,
your movie goes.
I bet you could talk to a lot of like frustrated screenwriting nerds and be like, it is oppressive. Sid Field's driving me nuts. I just want to write something that's sprawling. Like it is oppressive to a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's like, it's funny. It works.
It does. I mean, I was reading an article about it before we watched part 2, and it's like people attribute it to Sid Field, who wrote the storybook.
Okay.
But like it's tales old as time. It's like story structure from like Greek myths,
The
and
monomyth.
Aristotle.
Yeah.
And like the story circle is like popularized by Dan Harmon, but it's also Joseph Campbell popularized it, and before him it was it's like
Dude, how fucking hyped will
it's
the
spring,
dad?
it's the seasons,
How hyped
it's the world.
will the dad from My Big Fat Greek Wedding, if he was like to just be like, we created story,
Created this.
Aristotle,
Yeah.
Sophocles.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's the other one? Plato?
Well,
Did Plato do that?
no.
Is he Greek?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Plato's
The-
cave?
Plato interpreted Aristotle?
Plato was the student to Aristotle. It went Socrates, Plato, Aristotle.
Who would you say is the best?
Socrates. Socrates, dude.
Because
Socrates.
he
Well, there was the pre-Socratics too, who like thought like this is the. How deep do you want to go? This is like
we don't need to talk about Greeks ever again after this.
this
so.
is like the way thought came is there was a shift from mythos to logos. So like at some point when Homer was writing shit, it was like lightning exists because Zeus throws a lightning bolt at you, right? That's like the myth. That is where all thought started. And then the philosophers started to categorize and explain the world. And so now it ended with Aristotle, and if you're a philosophy nerd, don't chastise me. There was a lot in between. It ended with Aristotle saying, no, nature, the environment, science causes the lightning strike. And so the pre-Socratics all the way through Aristotle were the shift from mythos to logos.
Dude.
Logos being blueprint.
You know what's so funny is Katie, your wife, she says like Aiden is her guy, right? And she's like, John is such an Aiden. And if you went into My Big Fat Greek Wedding and you just dropped that knowledge, the dad would be like, you needed to marry my daughter. He understood the people.
Yeah, totally.
He understood the Greeks.
And they raped a lot of kids along the way.
Yeah, but then they said,
Let me tell you where that comes from. Greece.
As long as you spray
Windex,
Windex on
yeah,
it, it doesn't
exactly.
count. It's not rape.
It's fine. It's not pederasty.
that's super interesting though, because do you know at all like where story came? Because I guess theater started with Greece, so therefore story. One of my favorite stories, by the way, is Lysistrata, which is that all the men were at war. And so the women just-
Lysistrata.
Lysistrata. Truth hurts, bitch.
I mean, like I think
But in Lysistrata,
that's way pre-Socratic. That's like Homer was like writing the poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, like those. I don't know where like story fits into it. Philosophy is like the organization of thought, and like I'm not sure where the story comes from.
Explain Lysistrata real quick because I know it and you've told me, but it's very funny.
Lysistrata, all the men are always at war, so the women are like, let's not fuck the men anymore. And then throughout the play, they all had like big dongs. And like throughout the play, all the guys' dongs would just get like harder and harder because the women wouldn't have sex with them. And so finally they stop having war so they can, and then the women fuck their men again. So did you see like...
It's essentially, it's the first make love, not war thing ever. Yeah. Totally.
But it's like, you know, they had some great plays back then. That one's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Also, there's the one about how like the guy fucks his mom, which I love that one.
What is that?
Oedipus.
Oh, Oedipus.
And he kills his dad.
Yeah.
Great plot
But
twist.
there's a bunch of like ancient Greek playwrights. Aristophanes, I think, is one of them. Who did Clouds.
Yeah. I would
And
say
the Frogs. I was in the Frogs. I played Karen.
Nice,
Dude,
you're such a Karen.
I went
The
over the
original
river
Karen.
Styx.
Did you go talk to the manager?
I'd like to talk to the manager
Ribbit.
of Styx.
I think without
Let
necessarily...
me talk to Hades. Hades. No, Hades.
I would like to speak to Hades, please.
Is there
Put Hades on the phone.
is there another god I could speak with? Without knowing pre-Socratic, post-Socratic, I would say though that story and all of that stuff is probably pre-Socratic because it seems like the other one is it's human myth without gods, you know, and it's not logic.
Yeah.
It's pre-logos, I guess.
Yeah.
I put in where did story come from? And do you know the first thing that pops up on Google?
What's that?
Where did the Aladdin story come from?
Dude, I got in a huge debate over Aladdin about where like Agrabah is. Where do you all think Agrabah exists in the if it were in the real world, where would it be?
The Saudi Arabia?
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
No, Aladdin 2 solves this. It's in Egypt or it's in Africa.
Okay.
which just I always thought it was the Middle East.
Yeah, I would have too. I mean, I guess there's the Sphinx
Yeah, but
comes
still,
alive in it.
Yeah.
I always thought I always thought we were in the Middle East.
What, in Aladdin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prince
of
sorry,
Egypt, Africa.
that's a tangent. We're talking about My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah.
And story. And
We kind of just did My Big Fat Greek Wedding thing where they do vaguely Middle Eastern music for just all of the culture.
Yeah.
And we kind of just went full Middle Eastern North African culture.
yeah. I mean, what's interesting, and Dan Carlin talks about this in Hardcore History, which is a great great
Carlin, Hardcore History.
Yeah.
Today we're watching My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Great podcast. Great podcast.
Yeah, an absolute meat grinder.
Yeah. Guy's a
But
genius.
he talks about how story is I'm botching the quote. The victors write the story, and so
Yes.
it's we are the Greeks framed all of culture, and the Romans, and then Western culture was the cradle of all thought, and it's that's because they won.
Yeah.
All this shit was happening other places, but they stamped it out.
Yeah.
So it's did they start story? I don't know. That's what we know because theirs were the only ones that they didn't burn.
Well, I bet actually when I looked on the source of all knowledge, Wikipedia, when I looked on there about story or hero's journey, it goes through, you see it in all societies.
Yeah.
When you get into ancient history, there's, that's, you look in old myths of India and myths of Africa, it's a human thing.
Yeah.
But you're right. We attribute it to people because they won, and then that went through, and then Western culture
Right.
in Europe, and then
And
came
some of
to
those
America.
civilizations just didn't, exist anymore. When you think of the ancient Romans, the pyramids and the ancient Egyptians were older to them than that culture is to us.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Crazy.
That's
that
wild.
That was their ancient civilization. So you have to think they were probably telling stories to each other. They were having big fat Egyptian weddings with each other and all that crap.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I find the movies that we're going to be watching so interesting, because they clearly are the same story that's been told for so long,
Yeah.
and yet still, when it can come around in a new, fresh way or whatever, it still hits people in a way that it's millions and millions of dollars, millions of people around the world talking about this one story where it's all it was two people met and liked each other.
And then you had roasted lamb at Dancing Zorbas.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, people want to see what they want to see.
Well, we should wrap up this movie. We should go watch. We'll see if
I'm
the
so
wedding
excited.
happens. This is the fucking moment.
Third
This
act.
is the big fat Greek wedding.
I know. We're there.
We got to watch the climax before we see the denouement.
The
denouement.
The denouement.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. If you're following along at home, turn on. We're about 59 minutes in,
Think so,
I
yeah.
believe. So turn on the last part of My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
We've
Pull
just seen the
yourself-
scene where they've talked to his parents about how they're going to get married at the Greek Orthodox church and not at their country club.
That's right. Get yourself some what are some Greek drink? Do they have good wine?
Yeah. Well, you would get. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on it.
I went to
That's the thing you drink when you do opa. It's oh my gosh.
I had it last night. It tastes like licorice, right?
Yes, it's
What
a
is
real
it?
I got
anisey taste.
I had
Hold
a
on.
free shot of that last night. I went
Did
to
they know?
I went to Slovaki GR in the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
And I sat at the bar and I had a pita.
It's not sambuca.
I don't know what it's called, but they gave me a free one just because, I don't know. They were just nice.
It's the best.
It's ouzo.
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 I had ouzo last night.
Pour yourself a nice glass of ouzo. Get some
some
pita.
ouzo.
Get some hummus. And
Tzatziki.
tzatziki. Let's watch My Big Fat. Wait, hummus isn't Greek.
Hummus isn't Greek.
No,
hummus is
have
Middle
some too.
Eastern.
Have some too.
Have some
Get some of
hummus.
that. Get some of it. All right. Talk to you later.
Bye. Hey, John, you're a busy guy, right?
Cory, I consider myself a fairly busy guy with a new baby here and a hit podcast like X, Y, and Me.
Yeah, you are on X, Y, and Me multiple times in the morning, but you still want to eat, and you still want to eat good food, right?
You have to eat.
You got to eat good food, and that's why something like HelloFresh is so good and so convenient. You know, when you're with your co-host Carrie, Che Diaz, and whatever character Bobby Lee plays, you got to have something like HelloFresh, you know?
I'll tell you why I like HelloFresh. It's the pre-portioned ingredients. You know, like when you have like a really weird, like a star anise, and you don't want to buy like a large gallon-sized bottle of spice.
Nobody needs
HelloFresh
that.
sends you pre-portioned ingredients to your door, including farm fresh produce that arrives within a week, so you get all the convenience of delicious groceries without skimping on quality.
And we're also not just talking about boring food. We're talking about timeless classics and new hits. Things like a beef tenderloin and cheese fondue, a delicious meal that I'm sure Carrie was eating in Paris after she dumped Big's ashes off that bridge. I'm talking about miso shrimp and bacon ramen. Two great tastes that taste great together, all from HelloFresh. So go to HelloFresh.com/BradshawBoys16 and use the code BradshawBoys16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's BradshawBoys16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts from HelloFresh.
That's right. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit.
Hello, taters. Later, taters.
Arcade Fire is back. This fall, the band embarks on the We Tour, featuring special guest Beck performing an acoustic set. City members get early access to tickets during the city presale. It's happening May 10th at 10 a.m. to May 12th at 10 p.m. We are going on this trip together. Are you ready? Buy your tickets at cityentertainment.com.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding, directed by Joe Zwick. Everyone in the Portocalos family worries about Tula, played by Nina Vidalis, still unmarried at 30 years old. She works at Dancing Zorba's, the Greek restaurant owned by her parents. After taking a job at her aunt's travel agency, she falls in love with Ian Miller, a teacher who's tall, handsome, and definitely not Greek, played by John Corbett. Tula isn't sure which will be more upsetting to her father, that Ian is a foreigner or that he's a vegetarian. And now, back to the boys.
Opa!
It's the movie.
We're back.
My Big Fat Greek denouement.
So this is weird. There was no wedding. They didn't get married. No. I guess it's impressive that you can. You kind of the title of the movie gives everything away.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
But what's the end of a movie? It's supposed to be surprising yet inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Yeah. There wasn't. Do you just want to get into it? Into discussion? Is there any sort of preface that we want to do here?
I would be interested in your initial feeling at the end of the movie. What was it?
I didn't love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You weren't a fan.
Did you like the journey? Because it seemed like you were along for the journey. You didn't like this last act.
Yeah, there wasn't. I was preparing for more conflict. Like I feel like the most conflict we saw in that movie was the dad being like, "The family is like toast."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the friend was like, if they tell you to jump, you jump. And he's like, I'm a trampoline. Like,
yeah.
Other than that, there was like no real conflict at all. And I guess maybe that's the point.
In the third act?
And any of it, really.
In the whole movie?
Yeah. Like between where was the conflict between like the two of them? Like
the only time this is two answers. One, the only time we really see some real conflict with them is in that date where she's like, I do this and I do this and I do this. And he's like, I love you anyway. But I think this is why we said part of the reason the movie sticks with people is it's not a movie about conflict between them. It's a movie about can we make it together and overcome our cultures, which is why at the wedding.
I feel like that wasn't tested ever. I
think it was tested in small ways as you go through. It's like that's all your little funny plot point scenes. Like it's tested.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's tested well, but it's tested at the dinner where it's like, it's going to be a nice dinner to meet my parents. What? You invited all our Greek relatives and we're roasting lamb on the lawn?
Mm-hmm.
And then like the parents show up and have that. And then we got our David Lynch scene where they get drunk and everything gets wobbly.
Yeah.
Well, we did get our indie movie scene.
Yeah.
It was basically they're sitting there. They're starting to plan the wedding. Obviously, they want a big wedding, and it's like you're inviting so many people, which is pretty classic. I've gone to a few of my Italian Catholic friends' weddings, and it's like this is you mortgaged a house to pay for this wedding.
What's the biggest wedding you've ever been to, people-wise?
It was like $350. My friend Joe.
Ooh. What about you?
Probably. I mean, our wedding was pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My college friend had 500.
That's a huge wedding.
Insane.
And it was 500, but the way they did it is they like potlucked all the food and they got people
smart.
to bring
Yeah.
desserts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was a ton of people.
Well, they do the wedding planning, and then the families meet each other.
Yeah.
They invite them over for dinner.
There's a big dinner scene in which, and yeah, like you said,
It's supposed to be meet the parents. It's
Yeah.
the two parents meeting each other.
Yeah.
And
I have nipples, Greg.
I have nipples, Greg. Can
Can you milk me?
Can you milk me? Does tzatziki come out? Yeah.
They have the entire family over, and they're like roasting a lamb, and they're outside dancing.
This
And
looks so fun.
looks super fun. And Aiden's family comes up, and they're like, "What the hell is going on?"
Yeah.
And the father is like,
His parents reminded me so much of like a VH1 commercial of like
Yes.
the 80s kid in the room playing
Yeah.
music too loud and the parents being like, oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
it's totally it's the dad from before Black or White comes on, the Michael Jackson
Yeah.
song. It's
Yeah.
like, turn it down.
Turn it down in
turn
there.
it down.
Squid roasting lamb in the front yard.
Yeah, totally.
So they have the big party. It's like kind of aggressive, and Aiden's just being himself, being like, hey, like just leave him alone.
Yeah.
Ian Miller.
I'm not gonna say that. You only
Yeah.
got me once.
Yeah.
Then the parents drink a little bit, and they get super drunk. Then then that's the end of that scene. Then the father is just like, they're like toast.
Yeah.
This family's so boring. And then they go to the wedding.
There's a nice scene where and we need to talk about her living at home still, even in her 30s, which I think is something that's interesting. But she sits down with her mom, and her mom was like, we left our village for you. This is all for you. That's why your dad's taking it so hard. And then magical grandma comes in and gives her the wreath, and like they look at the box of treasures.
Yeah.
And, that was like a moving scene for sure, touching. I'm sure like a lot of mothers and daughters watched that scene and really enjoyed it. But
And there's the scene with her brother where he comes in.
I love her brother.
He's trying to do the menus and stuff, and then he comes to her, and what's he say? He's like, "Don't let anyone." He basically like,
It's like, don't let your past,
yeah, like
don't let your past define who you are. Like, let it be part of you, and
Yeah.
you define your future.
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
Who was it that first pointed out that guy's lips?
stuff. I did.
You did.
His lips and
Beautiful.
jawline are just
Yeah.
like some of the best I've ever seen.
Do you know Eric Roberts, Julia Roberts' brother?
No.
I'll show you a picture of him. He's got a little bit of an Eric Roberts meets Bobby Cannavale vibe.
Okay, I really enjoyed that guy.
Yeah. So then she has a zit. The day of the wedding, she has a zit, and all the women are like, "Wah!" And there's just like John said, just like a linebacker of a lady who's never been in the movie so far. So
Yeah.
you're like, who is this?
Just leading the charge,
Yeah.
getting the. Oh yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah,
And he's got lips.
But then they like did the
got the
classic
lips.
at the wedding. They did the classic '90s trope of like the big bridesmaid with like
Yes.
the short, fat, bald
Yeah.
friend.
yeah,
It's
and
just
they
like,
kind of make
of
eyes
course,
at
only
each
those two
other.
would be attracted to each other.
Yeah.
the two
exactly.
uglies.
Yeah, It's like put those
Bald
those
people
uggos
are
together.
ugly.
Fucking gross.
They're just
fat, bald piece of shit, and this
Yeah.
fat lady. They found love.
They
Can you
found
believe
love?
it?
Thank God they did somehow.
Yeah.
These two trash compactors. Get them out of here.
It's so funny to see that because it's like the movie deals in stereotypes, but I think in like a way that's like, oh, there's some truth to this, and that
Yeah.
was just like, wah, wah.
Dude,
Like,
you can't get away from the stereotype of the two fat people making eyes at each other
Yeah,
at the wedding.
no.
that'll always be funny.
Always gonna be there.
she gave him classic Looney Tunes auga eyes.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Oh, have you ever seen the movie Cold Mountain?
yeah.
There's a part in there where they're they're in like a whorehouse, and like they play that same thing with like the fat pursues are getting, but it's just played in such a raw Civil War way where I think it's Cold Mountain. They're gonna bring this one guy and the one girl they turn to, she's like this like big brassy woman, and she goes, I'm gonna make him rub me till I grunt. It's such a like,
How bad would it suck for you to be a short, fat, bald guy going to a whorehouse, and you're just like, even then you're like, I have money, I'm paying, this is transactional sex, and you still have to be with like
Yeah. What I was going to say earlier is like they do a good job in the third act of humanizing a lot of characters where they have like the grandma, the brother, but they completely dehumanize those two
That's why
characters.
it's so funny. That's why it stood out.
Yeah.
So the father gets up, gives the speech. He says, "Our last name means in Greek means apple. Your last name
orange. The Greek
Orange.
is orange. Yeah.
Greek is orange.
and
Miller is apple.
Miller means apple. So we're like apples and oranges. But in the end, we're all fruit.
We're all fruit.
By the way, I gave you a house.
By the way, I gave you a fucking house. You never forget it. What'd your parents do?
Yeah, exactly.
And then we had the Wasp redemption.
Wasp Justice.
We didn't see Opa. We wanted to see Wasp Redemption with
Yeah,
Opa,
it was
but-
weird. He was like, "What do you say?" And she said the other Greek
she needed
term
to say
that's like a
Opa.
cheers, and like and so we didn't get a full Opa out of them.
They took a shot.
Did we get them spinning?
Yeah,
in
they
the
were in
dance.
that.
We got them in the spinning dance. But I wanted a bigger rapping grandma for the mom and dad. And we didn't really get that.
Well, yeah, they took the shot like before the alcohol made them drunk, and this time it loosened them up in like a good way.
It kind of showed that they were already kind of loose, and they were like, "This ouzo is really good.
Yeah,
can we get a
yeah.
little more of that?" Yeah,
But I don't. That just seems like such a swing and a miss because they take the shot and then they go dance.
Yeah.
which is like okay.
yeah.
You're loosening up, but what a swing and a miss to not just have both the Wasp parents
I
just
know.
yell Opa as loud as you can. And
I know.
everyone's just like. "Ah!"
I know. You know what happens if we get a spinoff with the mom? Because you saw when she drank it, and she was like, "Whew."
Yeah.
The spinoff is just my big fat Greek intervention.
Yeah.
When she just gets too hooked on ouzo.
Don't talk to me about my ouzo.
Yeah, there's a little bit of swinging.
One of the things I want to talk about is the wedding planning and like what was interesting about this movie is the conflict is not, I don't think, there between Ian and Tula. The conflict is there between Tula and her family, her father, her big family, her sisters, her things like that. And I guess that makes sense. And that's why it's like, it's interesting. Is this even like a romantic comedy? Because I feel like, I mean, that's a question I'd love to ask at the end of all of these movies when we do this project. Or is this just like a comedy that involves a wedding and a relationship? Because none of the comedy, I feel like, had to do with the silliness of the two of them together. It more had to do with like her bringing someone into the absurdity that is her family.
I mean, I think that's why the movie was such a financial success and rings differently than most movies like this. Like it's bringing in as the foremost element the social aspect of how two families come together, not will they, won't they.
Yeah.
Will they, won't they is probably what most are. I mean, that's
What a lot
when
of
Harry
them
Met
are.
Sally is
Yeah.
will they, won't they. They're friends. How can you be friends?
Is that a term that you coined? Will they, won't they?
No,
No.
that's like a Ross and
fucking
Rachel
wish.
thing too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish I would have coined that.
I wish you coined it.
Kevin Cleese coined that in 2022. But yeah, there's never will they, won't they. There's just they're together, and I guess that takes the conflict down. But it also, you are right that it's like it's between their families, and it's primarily, if anything,
Tula and her family.
She's the protagonist, but in a way, the father has the biggest role as at the end to just be like, we're all just people.
Yeah, we're all just fruit.
Yeah, he gets to be full on Greek and also like accept other people. He has the biggest change. She doesn't really change. Aiden doesn't really change.
She changes in the beginning.
She changes in the beginning.
Yeah.
when
she does.
when she goes from frumpy. That's even what Aiden calls her, frumpy, right?
She calls
She calls
was
herself
like, "Oh,
frumpy."
frumpy
And then
face."
he's like,
Frumpy
I didn't
face.
see-
She
I
goes
didn't
straight
see
from
a
like
frumpy.
hostess to savvy.
Yeah.
computer-
savvy travel agent.
savvy travel agent.
Dude, once I became a travel agent, I defrumped myself.
Dude, do
Absolutely.
you think a lot
got
of her travel agent blouses had large 1-inch shoulder pads in them?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The costume designer, they had to edit those out in post, the shoulder pads.
Maybe when they were kissing on the bridge, it wasn't Aiden's shoulder that was blocking; it was her shoulder
It was
pads.
her shoulder pads from her from the suit that she got at Ann Taylor Loft.
Yeah, exactly. I bet that she gets a couple of suits at Ross too, just off
Ross.
the sale rack, just
Yeah.
because she's got to buy so many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you asked me at the end of the movie, like, how was it? And I was like, I need to process it more and think about it. But I would love to hear, what did you guys think of the movie? What was your, like, are we rating these movies? Are we doing like a 1 to 5? Or are we just kind of sharing our thoughts on them?
Well, I would say that this movie it's not my favorite. I'm used to, like, I grew up watching like art movies and being overly artsy. We talked about this.
Yeah.
So it's like, so, and I missed a lot of like broad movies.
Yeah.
I think this movie, I can understand why it was a success. And I think that it's still, I don't know if there's another movie that I would point to that I'm like, oh, it's exactly like that. I understand why it existed in the world and was like a surprise hit.
Yeah.
But a lot of those times they're a little dated. And even this, like, there are parts of Sex and the City that are like very dated.
Yeah.
You know, even story wise. And like, I think the father character and I don't know, there was good and there was bad things. I can tell why it was successful. Ultimately, I'd be like, 3 out of 3 stars. You know, it was like a 3-star movie when it came out that resonated deeper than it should have because of the way they handled the material.
Right.
Also think about this. I don't know if I would be interested to see if anyone's written on this or anything, but like, okay, it's produced, shot around 2000-ish, maybe 2001. It's released in April of 2002. 9/11 happened in September of 2001. People are probably wanting a family comedy about coming together. Like no one is wanting to go see a disaster movie.
Interesting.
People are like, hey, what's a thing that, you know, I can get together with, like we're all Americans here, even though it's made by a Canadian, but it's like, you know, we're all Americans here. The family wants to go out and watch a movie. We're in a recession. We're about to go into a war. Like, this is just a fun time for the family. Like, I think that's a huge part of what this movie was. And at that point,
very insightful.
Yeah. Well, you know, I went to film school at a liberal arts college. So what do you expect? I may not have watched art movies growing up, but I went to a 4-year university.
No, that's
and
just
kind of got a film education.
Understanding dates and history, not film.
That's why I said I didn't really go to a real film school. I went to a liberal arts college. But yeah, I think that like that's a big part of the success of this. Because even when you're saying that, I was like, to me, it's a family movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not a big rom-com really. It is, but it's more like you're talking about the conflict. It's very soft on the conflict.
Yeah.
You know, there's like not, and we even talked about this and what we just watched, like a lot of like third act kind of like, okay, we got to get this in. Like the tone sort of shifts in the third act.
Yeah.
But it's not an offensive movie by any means.
Right, no.
And that's kind of probably what people wanted then.
It's very safe. Even, I don't know how to even bring this up and discuss it, but I'm going to just go for it. It's even a peek inside of a culture that is not too different than the average American. This is not like, you know, My Large Muslim Family, which I think would be like,
exactly.
It's like, this
totally.
is like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where it's like kind of understandable because, you know, the average viewer, they, like from the South, they look like me. They dress like me, kind of, with a little extra jewelry. And they eat very similar other than, you know, and so they're not taking even much risk as to what the cultural and ethnic differences are.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, I think that totally, especially when it's about two cultures coming together, and it's like a very, like, not safe, but it's like Greek people
safe.
are. This reminded me like some of those big scenes. I was like, oh, this is like The Sopranos big scenes. In The Sopranos. And
absolutely.
You're used to that with like Italian culture, but we're so used to culturally, because of movies, we're way more inundated with Italian food and culture.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, so instead of, they say spanakopita instead of, you know, spaghetti.
Cannoli.
Cannoli, yeah. We know
Calzone.
cannolis, but in 2002, people were like, spanakopita.
Totally.
That, you know. So I do think you're right. I think that's 100% why the movie, and also you could bring your kid.
Oh, totally.
And you could bring
Absolutely.
grandma.
Yeah.
and you could bring a date. So it's like it's covering a lot of ground.
Absolutely.
In that sense.
Yeah, the other movies in 2002.
Oh yeah, I'd be very curious.
Popular 2002 movies. Jerry Seinfeld Comedian actually came out that year, which is crazy, that documentary. But the big movies, Blue Crush was out.
Okay.
Punch Drunk Love came out that year.
Okay.
The Hot Chick with Rob Schneider.
Oh my gosh.
Catch Me If You Can.
Wow.
Great movie.
Great movie.
A Walk to Remember. Spun. Do you remember Spun?
No.
Is Brittany Murphy in that? You remember that movie poster?
Oh yeah.
Mr. Deeds, Jackass.
We look up highest grossing of that year because
1 hour photo.
1 hour photo.
Signs. Okay, let me look up highest grossing.
Yeah, highest grossing would be interesting because obviously it's like I love Punch Drunk Love, but it's like probably made $20 million.
Totally.
And this is
Okay.
highest
grossing. Wow. For 2002, Spider-Man.
The first Tobey Maguire one. If it's just called Spider-Man, then yeah,
it's just Spider-Man.
That's insane. That's
highest
crazy.
grossing, $400 million. Star Wars: Attack of the Clones, Episode 2.
Wow.
Jeez.
Harry Potter and Chamber of Secrets.
Jeez. Okay.
Signs.
They were just in the chamber.
They were in the chamber. They weren't even into Azkaban yet.
Wait, this is
What?
Let's just go through the first like 10 of these. Signs.
Yep.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding's number 5.
Okay.
So
Two Towers came out. Austin Powers came
Wait,
out.
it made more
made
money
more
than
than
Two
Two Towers?
Towers?
Yes. Yep. In the gross, it definitely did. And then hold on, Two Towers, Austin Powers, Men in Black, Ice Age, and A Beautiful Mind. The thing that's interesting in this is out of all of those movies, none of them are really like My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Like you got Spider-Man, you got Attack of the Clones, you got Harry Potter, you got Signs, you got Lord of the Rings, Austin Powers, Men in Black, Ice Age, Beautiful Mind.
All of those
none
are-
of those are big family
All
comedies.
of those are tent poles too.
Yes,
the top
exactly.
4,
That
and
is
then after that
insane.
are all movies that they're still making IP about, like right now.
Absolutely. This was the only one that's kind of like a new-ish idea, but also kind of like a
That makes me think that
slow
within the
pitch
next
family movie.
Yeah.
in the next 5 years, we're going to see another My Big Fat Greek something.
But where, I mean,
Maybe.
yeah.
I mean, you got to think that it's some analyst's job at the movie studio to just go comb through
Dude.
data like that and be like, I made this much in this much time. Like Marvel, Spider-Man just made a bunch of movie. Star Wars just made a bunch of movie. Their Disney Plus stuff. They're like, let's just reboot whatever else is on the list.
Do you think, because you mentioned this about it being like kind of non-offensive but still cultural, do you think we could do a My Big Fat Muslim Wedding at this point? Because they're 20 years after. Like the show Ramy is about a Muslim family going through these struggles, living in northern New Jersey, and how it's just like it's like normal immigrant family.
I mean, honestly, do I want that? Yes, because I think it would be awesome and
Yeah.
entertaining, and like if I think it would like really help people understand that. I think ultimately these movies are really good for helping people understand this culture because they don't take them super seriously, and you can peek inside the lightheartedness. Do I think that would ever play in parts of America? 100%
Absolutely
no.
not. Yeah,
like
totally.
if someone is glued to a certain TV station, news network, like they would never go see a movie about Muslim culture, and that's sad to me. But I think it is what it is.
we're maybe in a bigger polarization now than we were 20 years ago. In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Well, I also think, is there are stories like this told on those same screens? Like that even shows like you're at the beginning of like, is it worth $20 for me to go see this family thing? I'll wait for it to go on streaming. So
Yeah.
I don't. And then even once that happens, things don't necessarily become these like blockbuster streaming things. It's like, you got to see it. You got to see it. It does happen, but it's almost like this genre of storytelling would take place in, I don't know, not the movies.
Yeah.
On TV.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this influenced tons of storytelling that happens on TV scripts and stuff. and
even reality,
indie films.
even people like they're trying to show in reality TV.
Yeah.
They're probably being like, do you want to peek inside different family lives and cultures?
Yeah.
Like, here's the Kardashians.
That's kind of like
Here's,
what Wife Swap was
Yeah.
too. Wife Swap was like,
Can I fuck her? Can I fuck her? Oh, okay, I was just asking.
oh, it's more of a family swap.
Wait, I just hang out and do her chores?
Wait,
What
hold
the
on.
fuck?
I got to raise these kids too. I'm out.
But wait. Hey, everybody, welcome. Last season, we wanted to raise the stakes. A lot of you said there wasn't enough conflict. So, we're changing it. It's Wife Swap. Can you fuck her edition?
It's Wife Swap. Yes, you can. Because you're all asking that question.
Yeah. Before we answer it, let me get it. Yes, you can. Absolutely.
Thanks for coming. We're going to do our auditions real quick. But before you ask the question, yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Pretty crazy. It was just called Wife Swap too.
Wife Swap,
It's
yeah.
like such a like patriarchal like show of
Yeah.
like, oh yeah. I mean the whole thing. Yeah, you see the family and stuff. What's gonna get people in here? Wife swap.
Yeah. Husband swap? No.
No.
Wife swap. The
No,
husband's
no,
not
I
going
would
to fucking...
love-
Nobody wants another
I'd love
husband.
to be at that pitch meeting.
Totally.
That would be in the pitch meeting, though. There's just like, what are we going to do about the... Okay, never mind. No, we won't.
We just won't talk about it. We won't talk about it. We're gonna hint at it with a few couples.
Dude, I mean, I think that this... If you could trace the influence of this movie, it just wouldn't necessarily be on movies because that's the thing with the surprise hit. Like, all this magic happens with, like, you know, you make something and then you're like, whoa, I thought people would relate to my family, but actually,
Yeah.
man, family is like such a huge thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I don't think they could have predicted it. Obviously, they saw the potential in it, or else they wouldn't have given Nia
Dude, shout out to
Vardalos-
Hanks, man.
Yeah,
Shout out to Hanks. It is
And
kind of
Rita.
like a
And Rita.
she was Greek.
Playtone. Yeah, Rita.
Rita Wilson-Oculus,
So do
Exactly.
you think Hanks saw himself in Ian's character?
100%.
100%.
I mean,
I wonder if that's what his wedding was like.
that's what. Well,
My
I
big
just
fat
think
Hanks
he's-
wedding.
My big fat Hanks wedding.
You can totally see how like Hanks has his finger on the pulse of like, you realize like this has everything.
Yeah.
And he is like, this is a one woman show. It's like, no, it's not. Like,
He's like, look, when I sent Chet to Greek school,
yeah.
exactly like the ending.
Same thing.
Same thing.
But yeah, this is definitely a Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
You've got feta.
Cory, what was you gave it a 3. Like, what was your takeaway? Did you like it? Enjoy it?
I liked it. I liked it. Didn't like the end. Felt like it was inevitable, surprising but inevitable, but I wanted more. Like the wedding was not as well. To me, the crazy scenes were the pre-wedding, and I felt like the things they set up were like, oh no, she's got a zit. And then they have the little payoff where he's like, I had a zit. I use Windex. Like you get all those little tie-ups, but it wasn't as strong for me.
Yeah. I imagine this movie crushes it on airplanes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
This is like such an airplane movie. Like, I bet Katie has watched this movie on an airplane.
I think it crushes on airplanes, and I think it crushes it at family holidays when people are back home.
Totally.
It's like, let's watch Big Fat Greek Wedding again,
Yeah.
and somebody falls asleep, and like, you know, mom or dad loves it or
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, I bet every Greek family probably loves it, even if you're a little bit Greek. But I bet like even like big Armenian families probably love
Totally.
Like anyone who's.
Do we have
Armenian
any-
shout out in this? I'm gonna give it a 2.5. I don't need to go too hard on it because I enjoyed a lot of the lead up.
Yeah.
But not a favorite.
I'm also curious because the format we're watching these in are like 30-minute chunks at a time.
Yeah,
and I
totally.
wonder if we, because we want to analyze and talk about the movies and really examine them, I wonder if our ratings are going to be less because of how we're consuming them.
Emotionally, we're losing a little bit of the we're putting a break on anything that would catch you up in the movie.
Yeah. Do you have you seen Phantom Thread, John?
I love that movie.
See, because that obviously conflict is like
My big
time.
fat mushroom omelet.
Yeah. But that would be a movie where we would come back and sit down, and it is a rom-com, by the way. So we should cover that at some 100% a rom-com.
Oh, I can't wait to watch that movie
But
again.
that would be a movie if you've seen it. I won't spoil it, but that'd be a movie where like it's really interesting. Like last episode would be like, I'm interested to see where it goes, and we would set the mics up. We'd be like, what the fuck?
What?
So I do think that this was like a blandish ending, especially for such a spicy culture. But it was like a safe ending that avoided conflict, which I think is why people went to it or whatever. Yeah. But I don't necessarily think that our formatting is changing our opinion of the ending. I just think the ending was like kind of like a softball. I honestly think when you think about what climax is and what's the word, the release word?
Ejaculation.
It's literally the story word for ejaculation. I mean, climax literally is, but not pathos. Fucking.
Wait. I know what it is, but I'm like not picking up on.
It's the release of what you want, and I do honestly think something as small as just like you see the backup of the entire wedding.
Yeah.
And then both the waspy parents in the beginning just scream Opa as much as they can.
And everyone cheers.
And then they all go in and hug and kiss. And then you pull out and it's credits and you don't even need that they're married at the end. I do think that would give you that feeling of like, oh man.
Yeah.
You're right, yeah. You could have a denouement of you get that, you have the huge party, and then you either have them run out of the church or you just have them, not run out of the church, but you have them like run out of the reception and get in the car, and then you just get like a drone shot going up with your voiceover there.
They didn't have drones back then.
They had Technocranes.
You know what else we could do? The two parents should have been in the final denouement. The two parents should have been like, here's your backpack, and then they leave. And then I
the waspy parents?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
waspy parents should have moved across the street.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Check it out if you haven't already. Check out our Patreon where we're going to be doing more movies.
And you vote on the next movie if you do our Patreon.
What are we doing for our next movie here?
I'm not sure.
We're done.
The Bradshaw Boys stars Cory Cavin, Jon Sieber, and Kevin James Doyle. The show is produced by Jeremy L. Balin. For more information on the guys, check out their website at bradshawboys.com, on social media at The Bradshaw Boys. And if you see them in the street, tip your glass. Thanks for listening.